Hello, this is John with Coach.Win. Each week, the coaches at Coach.Win get together and share best practices. We share articles we've written, articles we've read, and other sources of information that we think are valuable. We're going to be creating those into a podcast. Because we believe so much in AI, we're going to let the podcast be created by us uploading all those articles and have it automatically recorded. So while the voices you're about to hear are AI, the content behind it is all generated by the coaches at Coach.Win. Enjoy the podcast.
All right, let's dive into this stack of materials on leadership, accountability, and building a company culture where everyone's in sync. You're looking to create a winning team, and, well, consider this deep dive your roadmap.
Yeah, what's interesting here is how we're going to go from those big picture company wins, all the way down to those nitty-gritty individual, daily performance things.
Okay.
You've got the destination in mind, right?
Right.
And all of this is about making sure, every single day, you're doing the right things to actually get there.
I love that. And speaking of journeys, one of the sources uses this great road trip analogy to explain cascading scorecards. So picture your company as this team driving cross-country from, say, Omaha to the California coast.
Okay.
Everyone wants those California sunsets, right? But how do you make sure your team doesn't get lost in the Arizona desert along the way?
Right.
You need a plan.
Cascading scorecards, a roadmap to success. It says it's not enough to just have that end goal, that big ambition of we're getting to the California coast.
Yeah.
You got to break that down into smaller, measurable milestones. So it's like giving everyone on that road trip a specific role, right?
Right.
With their own metrics for success.
Okay, I am so here for this analogy. I'm definitely the one who makes the snack spreadsheet, but please don't put me in charge of directions.
Yeah.
Totally hopeless.
Yeah.
But, okay, so in a company, you need someone mapping the route, someone keeping the car fueled, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Yeah.
Everyone has their part to get to that destination.
Exactly. And just like a road trip, you don't want to wait till you're running on fumes to realize you need to refuel, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
That's where the whole idea of leading indicators is really important.
Ooh, leading indicators. Okay, tell me more.
So instead of just focusing on that final outcome, like reaching the coast, you're paying attention to those smaller daily actions that are going to get you there.
Okay.
In your road trip, it's checking the fuel gauge, tracking the mileage, making sure you're stopping enough to take breaks.
So instead of fixating on that California sunset, you're making sure you're taking the right steps each day to actually get there. Okay, this is starting to click, but how does this translate into an actual business setting? Give me a concrete example.
Sure. Let's say your big goal is to improve order accuracy.
Okay.
A leading indicator at an individual level could be like a warehouse worker tracking their own personal accuracy rate.
Oh, okay.
Or let's say how many errors they catch before an order ships.
Ah, I see. So those smaller, consistent wins are adding up to the larger company goal.
Yeah.
Like if everyone's hitting their daily targets, it creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It's not just about the destination, but building those good habits for the journey, right?
Exactly. Metrics sort of cascade down from those top-level goals to those individual tasks, but the results of those individual actions, they all flow upwards.
Right.
Which ultimately determines how successful the departments are and the company as a whole, right? It's a really great feedback loop.
Okay, this whole cascading scorecard thing is making sense now, but I have to ask, how do you actually cascade them down through a whole company? I feel like it could become information overload really fast.
Yeah, and that's why being very clear and aligned is so important. It's like this. You start with those big overarching goals, company-wide goals. So maybe it's something like improving order accuracy, right?
Right.
Boosting customer satisfaction, maybe something else entirely. Then each department needs to figure out their own specific contribution to actually reach those goals.
Makes sense.
So what are the milestones each department needs to hit?
Right.
And how do those tie back to that larger vision for the company?
And then within each department, individual team members get their own.
Yeah.
But it all still links back up to those bigger goals, right?
Yeah. Metrics cascade down, results flow up.
I like that.
It's a great line from Cascading Scorecards. It just perfectly captures that back and forth between what people are doing day to day and the company-wide success. But even with the cleanest scorecards, things can still go off track, right?
Because even with the best laid plans, you can still hit those unexpected detours.
Right.
It's like you map out your road trip and then, bam, you hit unexpected traffic. Or someone left the cooler with all the drinks at that last rest stop.
Exactly. And when those bumps happen, it's so easy to slip into those blame-shifting behaviors. And this is where the next source you've got comes in. The case of the leadership team and the 3 reactions.
Okay.
It's this business fable, really illustrates this well, about a leadership team facing a crisis. And, well, let me tell you, things unravel fast.
Oh, this fable. It was like looking in a mirror. Remember that product launch that went totally sideways?
Yeah.
Everyone pointing fingers?
Yeah.
It was chaos.
It's a classic example of what they call the defend, deflect, attack pattern. Something goes wrong, and boom, our instinct is to either defend what we did, deflect the blame onto someone else,
Right.
or even worse, just straight up attack other people who are involved.
The worst part is we don't even realize we're doing it half the time.
Right.
So busy protecting ourselves that we forget about the bigger picture.
Exactly. So we need strategies to break free from those patterns, you know? And this fable, even though it's fictional, it offers some really good solutions, I think.
Okay, so how do we escape this blame game? What's the antidote?
The key is creating that culture of openness where people feel safe to admit mistakes without, being afraid of getting punished.
Right.
There's this one part, the fable of Manager Mira and Coach John's wisdom. Have you gotten to that part yet? Yes. It's so good. It talks about how important it is to ask those what they call learning questions instead of just launching into accusations,
Wait, learning questions. I love that.
Yeah.
But what does that actually sound like? Like in the real world, what are you actually saying?
So instead of saying, whose fault is this missed deadline?
Right.
You could say something like, what were the factors that caused this delay?
Okay.
What can we learn from this so it doesn't happen again?
It's amazing how much of a difference just changing your language a little bit can make,
Right.
Instead of putting someone on the defensive, you're inviting them to be part of the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And the fable of Manager Mira, it gives some great examples of those learning questions. Things like, what were you thinking when you made that choice? Or who might this impact and how?
It encourages people to take responsibility without making them feel awful.
Yeah.
It feels so much more constructive,
Totally. It shifts the energy from being defensive to actually, solving the problem together. And the best part, it helps people learn and grow, which, helps the whole team in the end.
I love that.
But remember, it's not all about focusing on the negatives. We also got to celebrate those wins, too, big and small.
Oh, celebrating wins. That's my favorite topic.
Right.
It is so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and just forget to acknowledge all the victories, And I did notice that a lot of these sources emphasize the importance of positive feedback, especially when it comes to this whole accountability thing.
For sure. There's this one, creating help and celebrate conversations versus the dreaded accountability conversation. It basically says these conversations shouldn't be something that people are, dreading.
Yeah.
They should be a chance for growth and for celebration.
Okay, I love the idea.
Yeah.
But honestly, how do you actually make that happen?
Yeah.
How do you turn those awkward, you messed up conversations into something good and actually productive?
Right. So they talk about 2 key strategies. The first is you got to get permission to actually give the feedback.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just coming in with a list of everything they did wrong,
Right.
You approach it collaboratively. Hey, do you have a sec to chat about Project X? I had some thoughts on how we could maybe make it even better next time. Something like that.
Such a difference. It's a team effort now, not just a boss-employee thing.
Right. And the second thing is all about being super clear and specific. Creating help and celebrate conversations, it calls this, using clock and calendar metrics.
Yeah.
Basically making sure everyone's on the same page and there's no confusion.
Okay, clock and calendar metrics. I kind of love that. What does that look like in real life?
So instead of being all vague and saying, I need that report soon.
Right.
You're precise. I need that report by 11:00 a.m. on Tuesday.
Okay.
No room for anyone to misinterpret, and it helps people prioritize their work.
Wow. Simple, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I am definitely guilty of overusing that as soon as possible thing.
Yeah, we all are. But, by being mindful of the words we use, framing things as support instead of punishment, and celebrating the good stuff,
Right.
it creates a much more positive and productive environment for everyone.
Okay, this is all starting to come together.
Yeah.
So we talked about having those clear goals, using those cascading scorecards, building that culture of open communication and accountability.
Yeah.
We even talked about those clock and calendar metrics. Love it. But I feel like there's still one piece missing. How do we keep track of all of this and make sure people are actually staying on top of their goals? We need some kind of system here, right?
Yeah, totally. We need to talk about the rhythm of success.
Okay.
This is where that sports team analogy comes in from. What's the score? Is your organization winning or losing?
Okay, you had me at sports analogy.
So picture a championship-winning sports team. They have those big, hairy, audacious goals, right? Win the championship.
Of course.
But they're also breaking that down. Smaller objectives. Winning each game. Improving certain skills. Really mastering individual plays.
Right.
And they have really solid systems for tracking their progress and making changes along the way.
Yeah, they're constantly analyzing what's working, what's not, coming up with a new game plan.
Right. Exactly. Just like those athletes' companies, they need a regular cadence for reviewing, okay, where we at?
Right.
What needs to be adjusted?
What are we celebrating?
Exactly. You got to weave that rhythm of success into the company culture.
Okay, so we're building that rhythm of success. I like that. Sounds like building those good habits, always being aware of where you are on the journey to those goals.
Yeah, and what's the score? It actually suggests using scoreboards like at every level to keep that rhythm going.
Uh-huh.
So you've got the company-wide scoreboards, right, to track the overall progress.
Makes sense?
Then you've got those departmental ones
Right, yeah.
to see how each team is doing.
Yeah.
And then, you guessed it, individual scoreboards so people can see their own progress.
So it's like you have that big scoreboard in the stadium that everyone can see.
Right.
But each team and each player, they've got their own stats too, right? So everyone's on the same page, but they're also like owning their part of it.
Exactly. It's like how a sports team watches those game tapes to really analyze how they're doing, right?
Right.
Companies need to do that too, have those meetings
Yeah.
to review their progress. Like, okay, what worked? What do we need to change? What's the game plan for next week?
You mean like those weekly progress reports? You're saying there's a reason I actually kind of look forward to those?
Exactly.
It's like reviewing the game film, coming up with the winning strategy for the next match.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about it. Every great athlete, they've got a coach, right?
Right.
Someone to help them reach their full potential. It's the same thing with those one-on-one meetings
Yeah.
between a manager and someone on their team, right?
Right.
It's all about having that support, working through problems, and creating that space where people can really grow.
This is great. Okay, we covered a lot today, from those big picture cascading scorecards to those clock and calendar metrics. Still loving that.
Right, right.
But you mentioned something earlier that stuck with me.
Okay.
You said it's not just about the how-to, it's about the why.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where those core values come in.
Right.
What's the score? Reminds us that these materials are a great roadmap and all. But like, the real magic happens when you actually bring those core values into it.
Okay, so core values. Where do they fit in here with building this dream team?
Okay, so imagine this. You have the best car, right? The fanciest GPS. But let's say you don't all agree on, like, what's important.
Right.
Like, are we respecting the speed limit, or are we trying to get there as fast as possible? You're going to run into some problems.
You're going to hit some roadblocks.
Right. Yeah.
You can have all the right systems, but if people aren't on board with those values,
Yeah.
it's all going to fall apart.
Exactly. It's not enough to just, like, make a list of those values and, stick it on the wall.
Motivational poster in the break room. Been there.
Exactly. You got to actually weave those values into, like, everything the company does.
Okay.
Who you hire, how you review performance, what products you decide to develop, everything. Those values are your compass.
And to bring it back to our chat, the scorecards, those coaching conversations, the whole company culture,
Yes.
it should all reflect those values, right? Because if you don't walk the talk, they're just words.
100%. One of these actually has a whole section on core values on their scorecard template. It's called Job Scorecard, I think.
Oh, interesting.
It's a good reminder that living those values, it's on everyone.
Yeah, everyone plays a part.
From the CEO to, the interns.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's one thing to talk about respect, integrity, all those good things,
Yeah.
but you have to actually do it.
Exactly, yeah. Figuring out what those core values are and then, like, really living them every day. That's the journey right there.
For sure.
But, if you use those values as your compass, right.
It brings everyone together, gives them a shared purpose, and that can be really powerful.
It's like having that North Star to keep you heading in the right direction.
Exactly. That's what makes a team truly great,
Yeah.
When everyone is on the same page, working towards the same thing.
This has been incredible. I feel like I have a much better understanding of what it really takes to build a high-performing team.
It's been great chatting with you about it.
Before we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners out there who are ready to build their own dream team?
Remember this. It's not just about checking things off a list.
Right.
It's about building something great, something that lasts,
Yeah.
So really ask yourselves, what are our non-negotiables? What really matters to us? What are the values that are going to guide us?
Find those answers and then build everything around them. Exactly.
Such great advice to end on. This has been amazing. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those extraordinary teams.
Absolutely. Take care.